telling me to check the names list first, then write the story. Names to avoid: Claire Dunmore, Marcus, Jenna, Beth, Natalie, Simone, Derek, Patricia, Avery, Ivy, Danielle, Ruthann, Lauren, Courtney, Ryan, Francis, Ren, Genna, Petra, Biscuit, Tara, Kelsey, Dina. The moment I found out, I was standing in my kitchen holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. My brother called, not to explain, not to apologize, just to ask if I'd already sent the money for his electric bill. And somewhere in that conversation, almost like an afterthought, he mentioned that the rehearsal dinner had gone great, that everyone had loved the venue. The rehearsal dinner I had paid for, the one I hadn't been invited to. I set the mug down very carefully, the kind of careful you do when you're trying not to throw something. Who was there? I asked. Oh, you know, Mom, Dad, Heather's family, a few of her cousins from Ohio. I waited. He didn't say my name, because my name wasn't there. I wasn't invited, I said. It wasn't a question. There was this pause, the kind where you can almost hear someone deciding whether to lie. It was just immediate family, he said finally. You know how Heather is about keeping things small. Heather, his fiancée, the woman he'd been dating for 14 months, who had decided, somewhere between accepting my $6,000 deposit on their rehearsal venue and the actual night of the event, that I didn't qualify as immediate family. I'm his sister. I'm 31 years old. I've been helping keep this family financially afloat since I was 24. And I wasn't immediate family enough to sit at a dinner I'd written a check for. Got it, I said. So about the electric bill, I'll think about it, I said. And I hung up. I should back up. My name is Nora. I'm a senior project manager at a logistics firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I make decent money. Not rich, but comfortable. The kind of comfortable that, when you're the only one in your family who got there, everyone starts treating your bank account like a communal fund. My brother Cole is 28. He's a good person, genuinely. Or at least he used to be. Funny, loyal when it counted. The kind of guy who'd drive 2 hours to help you move a couch. But somewhere in the 3 years since he met Heather, he'd gotten very good at asking and very bad at noticing. Our parents, my mom especially, had always had a complicated relationship with money. My dad worked in HVAC repair until his knees gave out, and my mom worked part-time at a dental office. They weren't irresponsible. They just never had much margin. And when I started making a real salary, the asks started slowly. Then all at once. It started the way it always does. A loan here. A grocery run there. Covering my parents' car insurance for just a few months. That turned into 2 years. By the time Cole announced his engagement to Heather, I had been quietly subsidizing my family to the tune of about $1,400 a month. Their car insurance, their internet, their streaming subscriptions, and whatever random thing came up, which was always something. I didn't say no because I loved them. And because saying no felt like abandoning them. And this is the part I'm still working through in therapy, I had somehow gotten it into my head that keeping them financially stable was how I earned my place in this family. When Cole proposed to Heather in October, I was happy for him. She made him less anxious about everything. She pushed him to finish his electrician's certification. I told myself the friction between us was just normal adjustment stuff. She was introverted, I was loud, we'd figure it out. Then he asked me to help fund the wedding. They had a budget of $28,000. His savings were around $4,000. Heather's parents could do $8,000. Cole asked if I could cover the rest, $16,000, and he'd pay me back over time. I said yes. I want you to understand something. I didn't say yes because I felt obligated. I said yes because I thought it was a gift. Because I wanted my brother to have the wedding he'd been dreaming about since he was a kid who watched way too many romantic comedies with our mom. I thought I was choosing to be generous. The $6,000 rehearsal dinner deposit went out in February. The remaining $10,000 was supposed to go out in May, 2 weeks before the June wedding date. In March, I noticed I hadn't been included in any of the group chats. There was a bridesmaids group. Heather had 3, plus her sister as maid of honor. There was a wedding party plus family group that Cole mentioned in passing once. I wasn't in either. When I brought it up to Cole, he said Heather just liked keeping things organized by role. I didn't have a role, technically. I wasn't a bridesmaid. I wasn't in the wedding party. I was just, apparently, the person who was funding it. I let it go. I told myself I was being sensitive. In April, my mom let slip during a phone call that the families had done a joint dinner at Heather's parents' house in Raleigh. Just a casual getting to know you thing. Very low-key, she said. My parents went. Cole went. All of Heather's immediate family went. I wasn't invited. No one told me about it. No one called afterward. It was just a quick thing, my mom said in a tone that told me she'd been coached to say something casual. You know how Heather is. Yes. I was starting to. I called Cole that night. I kept my voice very even. I've gotten good at that. I asked why I hadn't been included. It wasn't a big thing, he said. Seriously, it was just like dinner. It was a dinner where both families met each other. I'm your only sibling. Heather she gets overwhelmed, you know? She wanted it small. She invited her 3 cousins from Greensboro. Silence. Cole, I said. I've written $6,300 in checks for this wedding. I haven't been included in a single planning conversation. Now I find out I wasn't even told about the family dinner. What exactly is my role here? You're my sister, he said. Like that was an answer. Then act like it, I said. And I got off the phone. I talked to my best friend Margot about it that weekend, over brunch. Margot is an attorney, not family law, she does corporate work, but she thinks like a lawyer in every context, which I find both annoying and useful. Has he signed anything? She asked. No. It's a verbal agreement. She gave me a look over her mimosa. Nora, I know. You have $6,000 already out the door and $10,000 you're planning to send in May. I know. And you haven't been invited to one single event. Margot, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just describing the situation so you can hear how it sounds out loud. It sounded, out loud, like I was funding a wedding I was being systematically excluded from. I didn't do anything yet. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. That Heather wasn't actually that calculated. That Cole wouldn't actually let this happen. That my family, wouldn't treat me this way on purpose. Then came the rehearsal dinner. Cole mentioned it 2 weeks before, Friday night, at Harborview Event Space, the venue I had written the $6,000 check for. Rehearsal at 6, dinner at 7:30. Open bar, the whole thing. He told me about it the way you tell someone about a work event they weren't attending. Informationally. No invitation followed. No, you'll be there, right? No assumption that I was included. I waited 3 days. Then I texted him. Am I coming to the rehearsal dinner? He took 4 hours to respond. It's really just the wedding party and Heather's family. We're keeping it tight. Hope you understand. I stared at that text for a long time. Hope you understand. The rehearsal dinner was held in a space my money paid for. The flowers on those tables, my money. The open bar, my money. The past appetizers, the seated dinner, the centerpieces. My money. And I was home eating leftovers, while my family clinked glasses in a room I had paid for. I did not respond to his text. Instead, I called my bank. I explained that I needed to put a hold on an upcoming transfer. The $10,000 scheduled for May 3rd. They walked me through it. Then I called the venue directly and asked what their policy was on the remaining balance for an event in June. They told me if the balance wasn't paid by May 15th, the booking would be released and the $6,000 deposit would be forfeited by the booking party, which was me, so I would lose the $6,000 either way. That deposit was gone the moment I wrote the check, and I'd made peace with that. But the remaining $10,000? That I could stop. I sat with it for 2 more days. I wanted to be sure I wasn't acting out of hurt feelings in the moment. I made myself eat dinner, sleep on it, take a walk, sleep on it again, and every morning I woke up and the math was the same. I'd been excluded from every event leading up to this wedding. I had not been consulted on a single decision, and I had not been treated like family by anyone except, marginally, my mother, who called it a quick thing and moved on. On the morning of May 2nd, I canceled the transfer. Cole called me the next day. I let it go to voicemail. He left a long message, not angry at first, just confused, asking if there was a glitch with the transfer, if everything was okay with my account, if I needed him to send his account info again. Very practical. Solving a logistical problem. I texted back, no glitch. I've decided not to send the remaining funds. I'd like to talk when you're ready. He called immediately. What does that mean? He said. The venue needs the balance by the 15th. I know. Nora, the wedding is in 6 weeks. I know, Cole. Why are you doing this? And here's the thing about that question. Why are you doing this? It assumes that the default is that I send the money, that the explanation required is for the stopping, not for the taking. That I'm the one disrupting something that was just naturally supposed to happen. I'm doing this, I said very calmly, because I paid for a rehearsal dinner I wasn't invited to, because I haven't been included in a single planning conversation. Because I found out about the family dinner in Raleigh from Mom 2 weeks after the fact. Because your fiancé has made it clear, through every action she's taken, that I'm not family to her. And you've let her. Silence. I love you, I continued, and I want you to have a beautiful wedding. But I'm not going to fund an event that I'm being excluded from as though I'm a vendor, not a sister. You're being dramatic, he said. His voice had shifted, harder now. Heather just likes things organized. She invited her cousins from Greensboro to a family dinner and didn't tell me it was happening. That's Cole. I stopped him. I'm not angry. I'm not trying to blow up your wedding, but the money is on hold, and I'd like to have an actual conversation with you about what's been happening. Not with Heather on the phone, just us. He didn't respond for a moment. Then, I'll call you back. He didn't call back that day. Heather called instead, the next morning, 8:37 a.m., while I was on my way into the office. I answered because, honestly, I was curious. She was controlled. I'll give her that. She didn't yell. She used the voice of someone who had decided to be very reasonable in the face of an unreasonable person. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said. Tell me what I've misunderstood, I said. We've had to make a lot of hard choices about the guest list. Not everyone could be included in every event. That's just logistics. I'm his sister. And we love you, she said, which was the first and only time in 14 months she had expressed any warmth toward me. But the rehearsal dinner was for the wedding party. That's traditional. I understand that tradition. I also understand that your 3 cousins and both sets of parents were there, which is not typically how a wedding party-only rehearsal dinner works. A beat. It was family. I'm family. Another beat. Look, I think you're upset, and I get that, but holding the money hostage isn't the right way to handle this. Hostage. That word was doing a lot of work. I'm not holding anything hostage, I said. The money was a gift I offered voluntarily, and I've decided not to give it. That's not hostage taking. That's just a decision. Cole is devastated. Then Cole should call me and have a real conversation. You're going to ruin our wedding. And I thought about all the things I could say to that. About the $6,000 in a venue I never walked into. About the family dinner I found out about secondhand. About 14 months of being treated like an ATM with a family resemblance. I didn't make any of the choices that led to this moment, I said. I'm just responding to them. I ended the call. My mother called an hour later. This was the call I had been dreading more than any other. My mom isn't manipulative. She's just someone who deeply, almost pathologically, cannot tolerate family conflict. She would rather everyone pretend everything is fine than have a single uncomfortable conversation. I have spent most of my adult life watching her smooth things over in ways that left me holding whatever had been swept under the rug. Nora, honey, she started. Mom, he's your brother. I know who he is. This is his wedding. I know what it is. Can't you just? She stopped. Started again. Can't you just let this one go? For his sake? Let this one go. Like it was a single incident. Like there was a first offense and this was me overreacting to it. Mom, I said carefully, did anyone tell you I wasn't at the rehearsal dinner? Yes, honey, but did anyone tell you that I paid for it? Pause. The deposit, I said, the $6,000 for the venue, that came from me. I wrote that check in February. Another pause, longer this time. I didn't know that, she said quietly. I know you didn't. Cole didn't exactly broadcast the details. Oh, Nora. I'm not trying to blow up his wedding, I said. And I meant it. I just need him to have an actual conversation with me. I need to feel like I'm a person in this family, not just someone who gets called when there's a bill to pay. That's all I'm asking. My mom was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll talk to him. Cole called me that Sunday. Not Heather calling on Cole's behalf. Cole himself. His voice. No one else in the background. I didn't know you weren't going to be at the rehearsal dinner, he said. I waited. I mean, I knew you weren't invited, but I guess I didn't let myself think about what that meant, with the deposit and everything. Why didn't you say something? I asked. When Heather made that call, why didn't you push back? Because I didn't want to fight before the wedding. So instead, you let me find out through a text that I wasn't included in an event I'd paid for. I know. His voice cracked a little. I know, Nora. That was wrong. I should have called you as soon as it was decided and explained. I should have pushed back. I let her make that call, and I didn't say anything, and that was. He stopped. That was messed up. It wasn't an apology exactly. It was close. I need you to understand something, I said. I don't give money to this family because I think I owe you anything. I do it because I love you. But love has to go both ways, Cole. You can't take my money and treat me like I'm not really part of the family. I won't keep showing up financially when I'm not showing up in any other way that matters. What do you want me to do? He asked. I want you to have a conversation with Heather, genuinely, about what kind of relationship you want her to have with me going forward. Not for the money, for me, because I'm your sister and I've been showing up for you your whole life, and I'd like that to actually mean something. He said he would. He said he was sorry. He said Heather wasn't a bad person. She just had a hard time with people she perceived as competing with her for his attention, and he should have done a better job managing that from the beginning. I told him I didn't want to be managed. I wanted to be included. By the end of the call, we had agreed Heather and I would have coffee. Just the two of us, before I made any decision about the remaining funds. Not a confrontation, just a conversation. If it went well, we'd go from there. We met at a coffee shop in South End the following Saturday. It was awkward for the first 15 minutes in the way that things are awkward, when both people know exactly why they're there, and nobody wants to say it first. We talked about the neighborhood, the parking, the weather in June. Normal things. Then Heather said, I want to start over. And I looked at her and she looked genuinely uncomfortable. Not with me, I think, but with herself. With what she'd allowed to happen. I'm not good with people I feel threatened by, she said. And I know that's not fair. You're successful and you're close with Cole and you have opinions about everything, and for some reason that got inside my head as something I needed to defend against. Which was stupid. Because you weren't attacking me. You were just, she gestured vaguely, existing. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest, and I've learned to value honest over perfect. I don't want to compete with you, I said. I want to be your sister-in-law. I want to show up at Christmas and argue about football teams and help you pick out a couch eventually. That's all I wanted. She nodded. She looked like she might cry, which surprised me. I'm sorry about the rehearsal dinner, she said. Genuinely, that was wrong of me. I know, I said. We talked for 2 more hours, about her parents' marriage and how it had shaped her expectations about in-laws, about my parents and the financial dynamic that had built up over years, about Cole and how much we both loved him and how differently we showed it. I didn't forgive everything in one coffee date. That's not how it works. But I left feeling like there was something real there to build on. On April 30th, 2 weeks before the venue deadline, I released the transfer. Not because of pressure. Not because I felt guilty. Because the conversation had happened, and it had been real, and because I decided that funding this wedding was still something I wanted to do. For Cole, and for whatever version of family we were building now, the wedding was on June 14th. It was beautiful in the specific way of June weddings, where it threatens to rain all morning and then doesn't, and everyone exhales at once during the ceremony. Cole cried the minute he saw Heather come through the doors. I was seated in the second row, right behind my parents, next to my aunt from Virginia. Heather had me give a reading during the ceremony, a short one, just 2 stanzas from a Mary Oliver poem. She'd asked me 3 weeks before, called me herself, said she'd been thinking about it and she wanted me up there. I said yes. None of this was easy, and I'm not going to wrap it up like it was. The months between February and June were some of the loneliest I've spent. There were nights I lay in bed running through every check I'd written and wondering what exactly I thought I was buying with it. Not love, obviously. You can't buy that. But belonging, maybe. The sense of being needed in a way that mattered. What I learned, slowly, reluctantly, and the way you only learn things that cost you something, is that financial generosity is not the same as connection. I had spent years making myself indispensable in the one way I was confident in, and it had let everyone, including me, avoid the harder work of actually saying to each other, I see you. You matter. Come to the table. I still help my parents with their car insurance. I'm not a saint about it. There are months I write that check with more resentment than I'd like to admit, but I've started having actual conversations about it, about what's sustainable, about what I can keep doing and what I need to stop. I've also started saying no to things that aren't mine to carry. My dad's golf club membership that somehow became my responsibility 2 years ago. Gone. The streaming subscriptions I was covering for the whole family. I sent a text in August with the date I was canceling and let everyone sort it out. It's uncomfortable. Nobody loves it. But for the first time in a long time, when I sit at a family dinner table, I feel like I'm actually there as a person. Not a bank. Not a resource. A person. Cole and Heather live about 40 minutes from me now. We have dinner together maybe once a month. It's not perfect. Heather and I have rough edges still, places where we brush up against each other, and nobody's quite sure what to do. But last month, she texted me a photo of a sectional sofa she was considering for their living room and asked what I thought. I told her I thought it was a great couch, but the color would show dog hair. She sent back 3 laughing emojis and a picture of their dog, Biscuit. Wait, not Biscuit. She named him Walter. I always mix those up. Walter. 70 pounds of golden retriever who has no idea any of this ever happened. I think about that sometimes. How Walter just lives in the house, completely unaware that the family around him had to tear some things down and start over to get to where they are. And maybe that's the goal, actually. To do enough work, have enough hard conversations, release enough resentment, until eventually everyone's just living in the house together. Arguing about couches. Feeding the dog. Still standing. Still family. Just finally, honestly, on terms that are real. I used to think that if I just gave enough money, time, patience, the benefit of the doubt, eventually people would see me the way I needed them to. That generosity was a language everyone understood eventually. That love, if you showed it consistently enough in practical ways, would come back around in kind. It didn't work like that. And the hardest part wasn't finding that out. The hardest part was admitting I'd known for a long time and kept going anyway. When Cole called me the morning after I canceled that transfer, confused, almost offended, like I'd broken some unspoken agreement, I realized that's exactly what had happened. There was an agreement. I just hadn't been the one who wrote the terms. Somewhere along the way, without anyone ever sitting me down and saying it plainly, I had become the person in this family who paid for things and asked for nothing. And the moment I asked for something, just to be included, just to be treated like I existed, the whole arrangement felt threatened. That's not love. I understand that now, in a way I couldn't have explained 2 years ago. Love doesn't require you to make yourself invisible to maintain it. What I'd been doing wasn't generosity. It was a slow negotiation I didn't realize I was losing. There's a thing that happens when you spend years making yourself useful at the expense of making yourself heard. You start to believe that your value is conditional. That if you stop being useful, you stop belonging. And so you keep writing checks and covering bills and saying yes to things that cost you more than money, because the alternative, saying no, drawing a line, making a demand, feels like the end of something. The truth I had to sit with alone in my kitchen with a cold cup of coffee is that I had choices the whole time. I chose to send the money. I chose to send the money. I chose to stay quiet about the Raleigh dinner. I chose to wait and hope Cole would figure it out on his own. None of those choices were forced on me. They came from fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of being the difficult one. Fear that if I made any of this hard, I'd lose my place in a family I'd spent my whole adult life trying to hold together. What changed wasn't Cole, or Heather, or my parents. What changed was me. I got tired, and when I got tired enough, I finally stopped performing patience I didn't have and said the thing that was true: this isn't working, and I'm not going to keep pretending it is just to keep the peace. That's not drama. That's not revenge. That's just a person finally deciding that their own dignity is worth protecting. Cole is my brother. I love him. We're not all the way back to where we were before any of this happened. And I don't know that we will be, but we're building something real now, something that doesn't depend on me swallowing whatever I'm feeling and pulling out my checkbook. And that version of the relationship, as incomplete as it still is worth more to me than anything I could have bought with $16,000. You get to decide what you're willing to carry. And the moment you stop carrying things that aren't yours to hold, you find out surprisingly quickly what was real and what was just convenience. For me, it turned out there was enough real, enough to keep going, enough to sit across from Heather at a coffee shop and actually mean it when I said I wanted to start over. That's not a small thing. Even if it took losing a lot to get there.